That's a gay-ass podcast.
What? That's a gay-ass podcast. What? A really, really, really gay podcast that we call That's a Gay-Ass Podcast.
That's a gay-ass name for a gay-ass podcast.
Welcome back to That's a Gay-Ass Podcast, the podcast that asks, whose fault is it that you're gay? It is me, Eric Williams, and this week we have Jake Wesley Rogers on the podcast, who is performing in CYNDI LAUPER's farewell tour, opening for her across the country, and doing 2 nights at one of my favorite venues in all of the world. It's the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles, y'all. Now, Jake has also opened for Kesha, Panic at the Disco, Ben Platt, and Jake grew up in Missouri, just like me. So how did they become this gorgeous gay-ass adult? Well, I think you should listen and find out. You fucking sloot. How dare Jake Wesley Rogers come on That's a Gay-Ass Podcast in a stunning, are we calling this a sweater top? Are we calling it cardigan? Are we calling, it's giving chandelier. Jake, how's your gay day going? Is it gorgeous and gay or boring and straight?
It's been pretty gorgeous and gay today. It's a beautiful day in Los Angeles, so that's always gorgeous and gay. The sun is out.
Have you enjoyed being gay in Los Angeles, or do you sometimes fantasize about being gay elsewhere?
I do love being gay in places where it is ironic to be gay. You know what I mean? Like you're like in like a gas station in like Kentucky, and you're kind of scared. I mean, I don't love that, but it is kind of fun to like really feel like a unicorn for a second.
It is a fun gamble to be like, well, I survive. No, I do think there's a certain je ne sais quoi to being in danger. However, I'm so thrilled that you and I are both safe in LA on a gay-ass podcast, because I have to tell you something, Jake. If I ever butter up guests, it has to come from an organic place. And I have a very organic buttering for you, which is that my gay-ass husband first saw you perform at WeHo Pride a while back and said to me, Eric, you got to listen to Jake Wesley Rogers. And I said, put her on the Spotify. And ever since, I've been truly obsessed. So I'm just so excited you are here, and so excited for you to be going on tour, your debut album In the Key of Love. It's just all so great. So can I say a gay-ass mazel tov to you, Jake?
Oh, thank you so much. That means so much. I love that he discovered me at that show. That's so funny.
Grassroots.
I think I was between, if you believe it, Madison Beer and Jessie J.
That's right. Okay, and I love Jessie J, and Madison, I'm sure, is lovely. However, truly love Jessie J. But Matt told me that low key he enjoyed your performance the most, which is it's not a competition. We're not need to put like, girlies against each other. But I will say the Jessie J clip that made me gay was no.
Yeah. She has some of the best clips ever. Yeah.
White room. I think actually.
Oh my god.
Sitting in a white room.
Wow.
But speaking of making us who we are, I do need to ask you, Jake, the famous podcast question, which is, whose fault is it that you're gay? Who do we blame, babe?
I think musical theater probably made me gay. Yeah.
Jake,
which is like duh. It's like duh.
No, you've opened a gay ass can here. What was your musical theater origin story?
Well, I started doing theater when I was 5. My first show was Cinderella, and I had the first line of the show as the baker, and I went, "Get your fresh bread right from the baker's oven," and then my whole part was over, which is cool.
Was that the line reading every time? Get your fresh bread right
from the baker's oven. Yeah,
I'm glad you hit right. I feel like that is the operative word of that sentence.
Yeah, I practiced for a long. Like I tried, like get your fresh bread right from the baker's.
There you go.
But
I think it's always the from.
That. Yeah. But I like in fifth grade, I had YouTube as a very young child. And so that whole world was kind of open to me. And we went to Family Video, and I really wanted to see Rent. I was probably 10. I was like, Mom, can I rent this? And I was like, it's a musical. And she didn't know much about musical theater. So she was like, of course, it's a musical, like whatever, of course. And then I'm like in the living room. It's like, glued to the screen, and like became an AIDS activist in like
At 10 years old.
4 seconds, and yeah, totally. So that really woke me up. But in a lot of ways, I think seeing that from an early age made me realize like, oh, they're out there. Like my people are out there. I don't need to worry so much, even if they're not here in my like immediate world.
That's a great point. I think that when you're growing up in a place like Missouri, for example, and you don't really see much of anyone who is considered queer in any type of way, when you watch something like that, it is like, look at this stuff, isn't it neat? It's just like you watching Rent. I also was a Rent person growing up, but I also, the movie Camp is where I go when I think about something that showed me that there's other people out there. Because first of all, the movie Camp is about a musical theater camp, which would have been my heaven. 2, there's a plot point about like gay bashing and about like, at one point, Robin DeJesus's character goes to prom in drag and then gets like beat up. And I felt myself like feeling so connected to Robin, even though I was not dressing in drag. I was still like, I'm the freak. And so Rent for a 10-year-old, you probably didn't understand all of it. How could you? But you also understood all of it,
I think that's it. I mean, there were certain problems to watching Run at such an early age, because when my first time
AZT break.
Yeah, like when I was like making out with somebody for the first time, I did quite think that perhaps my being gay would mean that I would die from a disease at a very, very young. That was definitely something I had to educate myself on a little bit more, and thank God we have the access to healthcare now.
Thank God for now.
But
what about your musical theater journey then in high school? I always love to get a picture of like the guests in their starring high school roles. Were you moving from Cinderella ensemblist to breakout star?
I did my kind of last musical theater role before I really started focusing on writing and playing in bands and stuff was I did play Jesus in Godspell, of course.
Naturally,
Jesus in Godspell, and I still love that show so much. I still think it's
the song's hit.
It's still phenomenal, and I think it's I think it actually might be time to do a remake of it. I think it needs, because the movie's based in New York. I think there needs to be one based in LA. I can actually see the whole thing. So Stephen Schwartz, if you're listening, I'll be 33 in 5 years. So I would like to do that.
Holy shit. So we're getting a gorgeous 5-year long game plan.
Yeah, we're manifesting right now.
And I love to manifest, truly. One of my favorite things to do. So let's really manifest and breathe that in. Stephen Schwartz, I'm sure you're listening. But we also want to breathe this in as a gorgeous transition then to talk about the God of it all. Because you have such an interesting relationship with religion, I think, as somebody who like grew up pretty Jewy, very much an organized religion. Now I'm proud to be Jewish, but it's much more of like I love a challah. I love community. I love traditions. I'm not really religious, but you have so many interesting songs and stories about your relationship to religion. In fact, let me pull up a quote from your gorgeous Substack. Today is Sunday. You posted, "The last year of high school for me was, for all intents and purposes, intense. I was in a relationship with the son of a preacher. Period. In the timeline of our relationship, the preacher dad had left his evangelical post at a mega church, completely embraced his son and I's relationship, and began a new church in our town with the tagline, 'Everyone is welcome.' I sang regularly at the church, and this was the first time in my life I developed what I may now call a practice of devotion." Jake, this fuck Godspell. We need the movie about you and the star preacher's son love story.
I'm working on that.
That's fully insane. Can you give us a bit of like the lore of what went down? You were, I assume, secretly in love with the preacher's son, and then why do you think a megachurch preacher was able to embrace you in Missouri?
Well, it's a good question, and I think there's a level of I'll use the word grace that is obviously beyond my understanding, but you know, my boyfriend, my then boyfriend, he had come out before I met him, and it went very poorly. And obviously, his family was enmeshed in evangelical Christendom. I don't really need to say more. And then we met, and you know, I haven't really told this, but I do remember, like, when I met his dad finally, and we were open that we were dating. It's like, Brene Brown has this line: "You can't hate people close up," and I think that's kind of what happened. I think so many people with, you know, the belief of the evangelical world towards LGBTQ plus people is that it's like this thing that's out there that really terrifies them. But when it's kind of right next to you, and it's, you know, chill, and it's just this cute little 16-year-old kid who's just singing and stuff, it's I think honestly, I think that kind of helped in a lot of ways. And but there's also so many examples of it not working too. So that's why I use the word grace, because I don't really know why, but what a powerful story, you know?
It really is. I mean, especially when you think about a mega church, like that is such a world, I will say. You know, I feel like there are so many reasons why people search for a community like that, and there can be good things that come from it. But of course, when like the mega church's whole statement is that gay people are bad, and, you know, like they're not actually embracing everybody. I don't know if you remember, random thing that came up, but do you remember when Chris Pratt had a moment where he was like one of the biggest stars, and then it became known that he was a part of a mega church that was like anti-gay, and then it became this whole news story that, oh my God, he is attached to this church, that means he's homophobic. And I think like for a moment people were like, oh, are these mega churches, you know, should we be dunking on them? And I feel like I guess my real question is, as someone who has a spiritual practice, do you have any sort of opinion about the role that religion plays right now when it comes to either mega churches or just like I feel like there's sort of a newfound wave of younger people going into the church. How do you feel about that as like a spiritual queer person?
I've kind of, I feel like in a lot of ways I've gone through a self-directed seminary the last 5 or 6 years, because I was just so interested in the truth beyond the bullshit of what was being fed and delivered to me. And I just always had this inkling that the message that we were being given was not actually what it actually says. And what I have discovered, and what I really believe wholeheartedly, is that religion always belongs to the oppressed, and religion always belongs to those who don't have power. And religious figures, someone like Jesus, or I mean, really every religion has a figure like this, are always revolutionary figures that are trying to overthrow certain power structures of their time. And so when I kind of went in the text and realized this, I went, what's going on? Like, how is this text that's supposed to be about overthrowing oppressive power structures being used by oppressive power structures to control people?
Yeah.
And of course, there's a really interesting history about that, and I could probably talk for literally hours about it. But the nutshell is that it makes me so sad how so many people, specifically in our community, have been so traumatized by something that at its heart really, really is just love. And
well, that's what it should be.
And the mega churches and so many of the institutions, it's not about that at all. And I'm not religious. I don't belong to, you know, I'm not Catholic. I don't really belong to any of it, but it is one of my goals to make a space for people that haven't been included in that. And if only just to know that, like, they have every right to a spiritual understanding and practice of themselves, then anybody else. And that is true power, I think, is the inner power that can be gleaned from that, if that makes sense.
I think it's really well said. I think it's also, when you distill religion down to like what it should be, it's that it's community, period. And what a community does is make people feel supported, seen, and have a place to like practice the communal. How do you say communal?
No, that's right. Communal. Yeah.
Communal. Practice the communal, liquid U, fat A. Practice the communal traditions that make you feel delicious. And I think that like that's why, you know, we have our chosen family a lot of times, because like the Catholic, the evangelical, the whatever churches / religions have been like giving us so much fucking trauma. I mean,
yes,
it's very well said though, that I think like originally religion was about giving power to the oppressed so we don't feel oppressed. And then it's like all of a sudden like, okay, great, now you're telling people that they're going to burn in hell because they're different or they don't believe in you. And it's like, sweetie, I don't think because I'm a Jewess, I'm going to be burning in hell. I'm going to burn in hell because I jerk off in a steam room. No, that's actually okay as well. I'm not going to burn in hell for that. Jake, what is there any reason you would burn in hell?
Oh,
we're gonna play a game called "Why Would You Burn in Hell?"
I really love that question.
Wait, I would burn in hell because I eat too much sugar.
Oh, that's definitely what I would. I think I would, but I think I'd be forgiven. You know what I mean? I feel like we'd be forgiven for the. I think we have such a. We have a terrible, terrible, terrible understanding of that really terrible word sin, because there's a really great he's a very, very, very progressive I think he's a priest actually, but his name's Richard Rohr, and he's very progressive, and he has a definition of sin actually as a better word for sin is actually addiction. And addiction is anything that overrides, he says God, but it's really anything that overrides your higher power. Like
sense of like self-control.
Yeah, exactly. So when I think about it like that, you know, I think it's so silly that people like would go into like a confession booth and be like, well, I didn't go to church. I didn't. But like, actually, what if they were going in to confess, like, what are the ways that you sabotage your purpose this week?
Ooh, Jake, that's good.
What are the ways that, because that's actually that's the tragedy. The tragedy is not being yourself.
Okay, you are sent to me by the angels, because we're recording this on a Tuesday, which is famously my therapy day. And in therapy earlier, I was talking about how like fucked up it feels to like maybe like receive a compliment from somebody like, oh my gosh, congrats on, let's just say, the podcast. And then ultimately I immediately feel like a little uncomfortable and like a fraud, and that I like don't deserve any good things coming my way. And we were talking about how like a lot of my natural thoughts are to attack myself, and because I've been taught and told that you can't take up too much space. You cannot celebrate yourself. If you're enjoying anything, then you're doing it wrong. And so like, that's what I would confess in that booth. I would say I received a compliment and did not look that person in the face and give them a genuine thank you and feel that positivity. I was too busy listening to the fucked up thoughts that were telling me that I didn't deserve it. And so like, that's a much better confession than I had too much Tillamook chocolate peanut butter, bitch.
And it's harder though, because I think the real tragedy of this life is not becoming who you are.
Yes.
You know, like that's what it actually is. My favorite, I'm just going to do one more quote. My favorite monk, I loved him very much. His name is Thomas Merton. I didn't know him. He's been dead for a while, but he has this great line that's, many artists do not become artists for the same reason that many religious people don't become saints. They never succeed in being themselves. And that's his definition of a saint, is somebody which we think that being a saint means like, I'm going to deny who I am. I'm going to I'm going to be understandable. But he's actually no. Being a saint is actually the rarest thing in the world, because being a saint is being who you are.
The people who are most themselves are the people that, I mean, it's partly in a way, I think, why the musicians and actors and writers and people that we like bow down to, we bow down for a reason. It's because they have with great cost, they have bared their souls and created art that speaks to us. I mean, I think Beyonce should be given a sainthood. And when I went to Beyonce's concert, I think there's a reason why, like, every time I see her, I'm brought to tears, because I'm like, she is so fully who she is, operating at, she is not apologizing for any of it. The talent level, of course, is God tier. But I think that, especially for queer people, it's like, baby, do not deny who you are, because the more you lean into who you actually are, the more you are surrounded by the people that love you more authentically. And I think just like the happier you are, even though we're taught that the opposite will happen. We're taught that the more you are, the more ostracized and the worse the world is, because being different and weird is bad. But it's like, sweetie, let's lean in. Let's lean the brunch in.
And the gift of being queer is that we get to wear that on the outside, but everybody has to wear that at some, our being authentic is obvious because it's subversive in our culture. But I mean, let's do a little shout out to the straight white cis man who like is really having trouble. It's very like Troy Bolton, very it's Troy like, Bolton. But still, if we're to learn anything from that song "Stick to the Status Quo,"
stick to the status quo.
That's it. That's like, but I've never really thought about it that way. But that is kind of the force of life. We're always being given this messaging that we must stick to, even because the thing is, like, there is a cage around queerness too, that we're like, oh, but if you're queer, you have to talk about this. I mean, I felt a lot when I was writing this album. I was like, I was given messaging at some points that were like, no, you can't. If you talk about God, like, that's the jugular, of like a lot of people's beliefs, and I was like, okay, but that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, and I applaud that. I think it's like, it's, especially in an industry like just the entertainment industry is such a mind fuck, because like you're trying to like be creative and put your work out there, and then yet the people in the industry are like, actually, let's put some guardrails that are completely anti what you're trying to say. And it's like, well, I'm trying to make a living, but also make my art. It's so fucking hard. But you've been doing it for so long. I mean, you said you're so funny. Thanks. When I was 15, I was on America's Got Talent and lost on live TV to poodles that are probably all dead now. So speaking of sinning, Jake, be honest. Are you happy they're dead?
No, they were really talented.
What did these poodles do on television?
They did tricks and stuff.
Shout out.
It was pretty impressive, actually.
Were they nice to work with backstage? Were they okay to you?
I remember them being they were very focused. They were very professional. Yeah. Very professional poodles.
Do you want to say anything to the poodles that have crossed to the other side of the Rainbow Bridge?
Maybe we should ask them to pray for us, like,
let's ask them.
They've arrived somewhere, and, dear past poodles, just send, pray for us and send us some beautiful love and treats on this earth.
And we hope that you are landing the tricks wherever you are, and that you feel our love. And we're sending you little treats, scritches. And
I did not think we'd be praying to poodles today.
We're praying to poodles and pussy, bitch. Speaking of pooches, today is my dog's 4th birthday that we did make up the date. So thank you so much, Jake.
Happy birthday. What's their name?
Thank you. Freddie. He's an angel. He was found on the streets of Los Angeles. A guy that we follow on Twitter posted a video, said, what should I do with this? My husband said, that's my dog. I then messaged the guy, where did you take him? He said, this shelter shelter. We went to that shelter, had an appointment the day he was listed on the website. We adopted him that very day. It's been 3 beautiful years.
Freddie.
Thank you for
happy birthday, Freddie.
Thank you for that space. Now, since the America's Got Talent journey to now is kind of cuckoo-luku, I just want to get into the music of it all. You went from Missouri, and is it true Ozark? Like, are we talking Lake of the Ozarks for my Midwestern
the town's
dream?
called Ozark, but actually my dad's side of the family is from Lake of the Ozarks. So,
well, God bless. I went to a Jewish
God bless.
sleepaway camp called Camp Sabra at the Ozarks. So shout out. Spent a couple summers there.
I wish I could have gone to that. It sounds so fun.
I don't know. I mean, like, there were
Really?
parts that were great. There was a guy that, like, I got bullied for being gay because I always was. And I remember a friend of mine then tried to help by teaching me how to walk normal. And I remember, like, getting the tutorial for how to walk like a guy, and the whole time feeling like, this doesn't feel good. None of this feels good. And then, like, I go to Shabbat. Like, it was a very, like, I am confused and gay.
Yeah.
But your journey is that you moved to Nashville at 18 to go to Belmont, which is so funny because I know a few people that went from St. Louis to Belmont. Actually,
Wow.
Gorgeous gay-ass producer Nathanael and I both know a guy named Gabe Violet who went to Belmont and then was like, got cast in Spring Awakening, I think on Broadway, and then like left to do that. A couple of my other friends went there, but you, in my research, I'm told that in your first year, your performance attracted Sony, which then like got you to a publishing deal. What is the lore? Like, that feels kind of cuckoo-luku.
It was kind of cuckoo-luku. Belmont is, right in the center of music industry in Nashville, and they have all these opportunities for students. So my freshman year, I was just kind of applying to all these things, and one they were doing this series where they did a showcase for music publishers, and I just applied to it, and whatever, can't hurt. And I got chosen to do the showcase, and
What song did you sing?
I had just written a song called Evergreen, which is one of my first releases. It's still out there. And another song that I haven't released, but yeah. And then like a month later, I signed a publishing deal, which basically just means that I was given an advance to write songs, which I mean is mind blowing. And also I didn't really know nobody really told me what that even meant, like music at that point, until that point was obviously nothing that made money, and it was just something that I naturally did, and then I was sort of thrust into all these rooms with strangers to write songs, and I mean, I'm not making this a sob story, but it was just like, I was like, especially Nashville, it's mostly just like straight men,
Right.
And it kind of reached a breaking point that where I was like, I'm writing all these songs, but they're all really bad. And then finally I realized, if you're an artist, you have to say something. And that's when I really kind of started writing from my personal experience on a level that I hadn't. So yeah, I kind of got a crash course in music industry at a very, very young age.
How did the straight men around you react to then you writing from a real place?
Well, I'll answer that with a story. I was kind of reaching that breaking point place, and I showed up at another straight man's, this beautiful house, wife, and then dogs, and and then I sit down with this guy, and he immediately like looks me in the eyes, and he asks me like the realest questions ever, and he starts telling me all of his shit, and then we wrote this song. It's on another one of my EPs called Holy Man. And anyway, long story short, this person is now my best friend, and he's been in my band for 8 years. And so the real moral of this podcast is let straight men surprise you.
And I give my hands up to the Lord, and I'm open to a straight man surprising me. Amen.
Surprise you in a positive way, because sometimes.
Oh, by all means, I do not want a bad surprise from a straight man. I've had enough of those.
I have too. So I think I learned something in that moment that, like, You
fucking
never really.
bare your soul, be vulnerable, and if it
Yeah.
happens to be with a straight man, God
It might be
bless.
with a straight man. We don't get to choose these things.
Well, and what we don't do enough on this podcast is celebrate the good ones. I love to sass a straight man, but I think that the good ones, like, can you give us the name of this gorgeous straight man?
Mike Miller.
Mike Miller. I want to celebrate Mike Miller and all the other straight men who lean into the real shit that makes us vulnerable and human. And you know what? Since you're going to shout out a straight man, I'm going to shout out a straight man.
Wow.
His name is Jacob Motz, and he is the person who championed my glory hole talk show called Confession Hole. And he works at Portal A, and this company is like producing this series. We're working on shooting a season 2, and it's like been really exciting. And he is a straight man who fucking gets it. And I just the good ones are so good. So good.
They are. There's nothing more beautiful than like a straight man who's in touch with his femininity too. I think that's just beautiful. You know, that's just so powerful. I love that we've talked about God, we've talked about straight men. Wow, this is probably
And you know what? We got to go to then, if we're going from straight men after God, then we have to go to some of the goddesses that you've worked with. You are having an upcoming tour with the one and only CYNDI LAUPER.
Yeah.
Fully insane. You have also opened for Kesha. You've opened for Ben Platt, Panic at the Disco. Elton John is a goddess who is a huge fan of yours. He said to Fancy Haygood, who actually was on this very gay-ass podcast,
I love
Elton
Fancy.
John said to Fancy that you, Jake, are the bastard son of me, Elton, and Brandy Carlisle, which I just like, if I may go back to what I said about receiving a compliment was hard for me. When you hear Elton John say that you are the bastard son of Elton John and Brandy Carlisle, does that sit with you? Are you able to celebrate that? What does that do to you as a human and a creative?
It made me glitch a lot at first. Like I literally kind of glitched, which I originally found out that glitch is actually a Yiddish word. It means to slip away. I know, isn't it interesting?
Toda Rabbah, thank you very much.
It really
for the
made me
the
slip
Yiddish
away.
lore.
Whenever good news, I'm someone that gets derailed way more by good news than bad news. Bad news always kind of brings me to the source. Like it's like if something like negative happens, I'm like, I'm surrender. I'm like, okay, this is what it is. I kind of go to like a reality, but when really positive things happen, which in recovery, I have a lot of friends in recovery, and there's a maxim of just be careful when bad things happen, but also be very careful when good things happen. Like because it knocks you off your rocker. So I call them regulation walks. Like when I got the CYNDI LAUPER text, I saw the text. I felt like my adrenaline, reaching like the literal atmosphere.
How could it not?
And I put my phone, I was like, I'm just going to go on a walk and I'm just going to breathe. And I'm just going to remind myself that I am a little speck of dust in this moment. And I've been given a great gift and I'm happy, but I don't need to sabotage this by, because it's not natural. You know, it's not like those types of things. I've had to reckon with that. Like in the last 4 or 5 years, I've had a lot of moments like that which I'm so lucky to, and there are things I've dreamed of, but to just like on a Tuesday get a FaceTime from Elton John is not necessarily something that I was prepared for.
No.
And yeah, I think it's just, it can feel like a drug is what I'm trying to say. And I'm someone who's fully sober now, so I'm just very, 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 very conscious of when things feel like drugs.
Yeah.
And how to come back to the root, come back to the source.
Well, it's like the rush of dopamine in a way is,
yes,
it's hard to welcome it fully because
yes,
you don't want to fiend for it again and then feel that feeling of need when you're okay and enough without the dopamine. That is very much a real thing for me, that I went through like a week period of like a couple of good pieces of news came in, and I, instead of feeling I'm on top of the world. Everything's great. It totally destabilized me. And you saying that is validating that for me, because good news I want to continue to welcome and be thankful to good news, but it really is, we're not really prepared for, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know if it's like an artist thing or a queer thing or just the world is burning thing, but we're very much prepared for rejection because that's what we usually get.
Yeah.
But it's hard to just like welcome
comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard to welcome in positivity without feeling like you're losing yourself or a grasp of reality.
And I just have that brain that like when I get high, I just want to get more high. So I mean, I had some amazing news come on a couple of weeks ago, and I glitched, and within 24 hours, I mean, I was almost on drugs again. Like I was that close to like, which made me like, I mean, I was very gentle with myself after the fact, but it was very humbling because, you know, we think that sometimes I feel like it made me realize like all these things that, you know, I dream of in my life, like perhaps they're being dosed out in a way that isn't going to literally kill me. Because I think
like
it would.
Your body is attached to the IV bag.
Yeah.
And instead of a regular drip, like what if we just
literally, and it's like that, it would kill me. Yeah. So anyway, to answer your question, I'm learning how to handle all these things, and luckily there's so many tools, and learning about recovery has been really helpful too. And you know, it's just about having some tools because all that, when a positive thing comes negative, it just kind of pulls you from center.
Exactly. Like the dysregulation, no matter if it's positive or negative, is something that we have to be mindful of. And I feel like you're probably, I mean, it's really good that you're doing this work before launching into this tour, because you are performing in so many great places. And this CYNDI LAUPER tour, I mean, the way that it's billed is really exciting. It's billed as CYNDI LAUPER's Girls Just Want to Have Fun tour, like a farewell in a way.
Yeah.
And you're performing at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles, which is like one of the most incredible venues. When I moved to LA, it's only been like 3.5 years. And when I moved here and I got to see my first show there, I've now been back a bunch of times. It feels like a holy place. I mean, it's to see the beautiful natural landscape behind it. You're under the stars and the level of talent there. I mean, is there something that you're most looking forward to with this tour, or what's your mindset going into it?
Opening's fun because there's like a pressure that I don't feel when I'm opening, because, you know, it's not my show. I'm kind of there to serve this crowd and to get them really excited to see CYNDI LAUPER for maybe the last time, because these are her last shows. And that feels like a really huge honor and undertaking. And, you know, I always feel I always want to win over the crowd, you know? And
well, a CYNDI LAUPER crowd, you're going to win over. I mean,
I hope so.
I can literally see and hear them right now. It's what 88% women.
Yeah. And that's my fan. My fan base is mostly women.
And then you're gonna have some gays there who are gonna be like, wait a minute, this queen is fucking killing it.
That was perfect. Yeah. So I'm thinking about, you know, it's just, and the album's out now, so thinking about songs, and, you know, it's kind of that dilemma of like, do I do songs that I've been out for a while? You know, it's yeah. Because my friend Landon described this to me really well. He's like, there is a difference between artists and entertainers. And entertainers, it's for the crowd, and artists, it's not for the crowd. And I kind of feel like I'm somewhere in the middle, because I do want to be generous to people, especially because they're spending time and money, which are two, like, you know, the most precious resources there are.
Yeah.
But there is like a level of like, no, like I need to also do exactly what I want to do. So it's a balance, but
it's so fucking exciting. see your journey, and I just love to be able to talk to you about, you know, where you've come from and where you're going. And I think that we're in an exciting time, especially as queer artists, where it's just like, you know what? If the world is burning, we can continue to make our shit. And if we are lucky enough to open CYNDI LAUPER's tour or just perform in a backyard, whatever it is, we are a community that is lifting each other up and just like trying to pay attention to the good straight guys and not the asshole ones. Now, this being said, I do have to get into the final podcast question, if you can believe it, Jake Wesley Rogers. And that question is, if the world was ending, you could only save one character actress, who would you save?
One character actress? Oh, God.
Yes, Jake, yes.
I actually really need to think about this for a second.
By all means.
I have two, but it's because I don't think one is a character actress.
Oh, this is the fun debate. Give me the name. Who do you feel concerned is not a character actress?
Jessica Lange.
Oh, Jessica Lange, I think, is a character actress, because my rules are that she has to be a woman over 40 who has worn one wig once. And Jessica Lange, also, I think you have to be a woman who screams on camera, and Jessica Lange has such a great scream. I think that's a character actress.
I think it's either her or Jean Smart.
Wait, now you're making me want a Jessica Lange Jean Smart
No,
duo.
I know. They kind of, I feel like they have some beautiful overlap in their energy.
Oh, totally. And not that age is anything at all, but I do find it very interesting that they're only like 3 years apart. Jean Smart is 73, Jessica Lange is 76, and they are both women who have such a fucking badass strength to them.
Yes.
And you want to get twirly with them, whether you're having a gorgeous stack of pancakes at brunch, a champagne at a premiere, or in my case, I dream about blunt rotations.
Yes.
Jessica Lange and Jean Smart both are a good fucking hang. Although I'm a little afraid of Jessica Lange, which is kind of part of her allure.
Me too. I would be a little, I would be worrisome to say anything, really.
You know what would happen is that you would crack one joke that she would laugh at, and then you'd be off to the races. I think it's like, it's sort of like when bottoming, if I may make that comparison, that hanging out with Jessica Lange is like receiving a D, but I think it's like at first it hurts, and then you're just gooning.
Sailing across the sea.
Oh, truly.
Wow.
Well said, Jake. Gorgeous character actresses, and such a delightful interview where we really did discuss everything from the Bible to the Brobel. Jake, will you tell the listeners where to follow you and where they can catch the info on this upcoming tour?
This is my full name, Jake Wesley Rogers, on I think everything at this point. So all the information's there on my website.
Gorgeous. And it's also, we're linking not only the socials, but you should check out In the Key of Love, check out the tour. I want to let you know my favorite songs of yours are either Pluto or Lavender Forever. Just making sure that you know that. And Jake, I will maybe see you while we're both taking simultaneous regulatory walks throughout LA, or at the Hollywood Bowl.
I would love that. Thank you so much for having me, Eric.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to That's a Gay Ass Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode with Jake Wesley Rogers, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or if you're on YouTube watching there, leave a comment. Tell me why you like this episode and let me know you are here and you are queer. If you would like more gay ass content, the Substack is juicy, y'all. This week's bonus episode is video and audio with Brent Bailey, a very horny, hairy slut in Los Angeles who likes to go to Vaseline Alley. If you don't know what that is, go to substack.com/EricWills to see all the bonus episodes there. And I'll see you next week for another gorgeous gay ass guest. Stay gay. Bye. You've been listening to That's a Gay Ass Podcast, hosted by me, Eric Williams. If you want to see and hear more, make sure you subscribe to us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, or Patreon at Gay Ass Podcast. That's a Gay Ass Podcast is executive produced by Eric Williams and produced by Nathanael McClure. We'll see you next week.